It's me again, Harold. Here on YouTube, sharing with you some tips regarding game engine development. So what has been happening with me for the past 2 weeks is that I decided to go live on Twitch several days throughout the week. And throughout the live streaming, I have been sharing some tips, especially for new game engine developers. And so, what I decided to do was to compile all of those highlights and share them with you in one video. So, this is what this whole video is all about. I'm basically sharing tips for new game engine developers and for people who are currently developing their game engine and they want to figure out or have questions on some stuff related to game engine development. So here they are. I hope you find them useful, and if you do like them, you can join me on Twitch. I'm going to provide the link to my channel in the description below. Again, and subscribe and we can hang out. We can ask me questions, whatever. So I hope you find them helpful, and here they are. Right, what I have learned throughout the whole game engine development is that number one, failure is your best teacher, right? And you should not avoid failures. You should actually embrace them and learn from them. And number two, the biggest, greatest lesson that I learned was that your worst enemy is actually your own mind, right? It's those inner thoughts that are telling you that you're not good enough, that are telling you, why are you doing this? This is useless. This is not worth it. And the moment that you start listening to those doubts, to that inner voice in you, at that moment, that's when you either give up or you ignore the voice, that inner voice, and move on, right? So your worst enemy actually is within you, right? It's not outside in the world. It's not the society. It's not the economy. It's not none of that. It's right here in your own mind. Whenever you start listening to that inner voice that's telling you to give up, and you actually do what it's telling you, it's done, guys. It's over. But if you do not, if you ignore it, you get it. And if you don't believe me, do this, right? Go out for a run today, tonight, and go run for, I don't know, like a 2 miles run, 20 minutes run. And I can guarantee you that halfway, your inner voice is going to tell you, stop running. This is too much. You cannot do it. And I want you to ignore that voice. And I want you to keep running. Just ignore it for today. And keep running. And you'll see that you will be able to run those 2 miles. See, your body can do more than what that inner voice is telling you. So if you don't believe me, do that tonight, today, right now. Keep in mind that you do not, hear me out, you do not need to be very, very smart to develop a game engine. You do not need it to have a 4.0 GPA. You do not need it to be the top in your class to develop a game engine. None of that matters. Seriously, guys. I am not the smartest engineer out there, right? My freshman and my sophomore years, I got A's in calculus and physics, and that was the end of it. Because by the time I got to my junior and senior year in college, I ended up getting a bunch of C's and D's, and I was very, very happy whenever I got a C in one of my mathematics class or engineering classes. So you do not need to be very smart. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to have a special talent. All you need to have is the desire to do something beyond your capabilities. That's all, right? It's the desire to do something beyond your intellectual capabilities. Do something that somebody told you you're not capable of doing that, and then you go ahead and you do it. That's all you need, like that grit, that desire, that just desire to go at it and not give up. And if you approach, if you take it that way, with that idea of I'm doing this and no one is going to stop me, and nothing is going to stop me, well, guess what, guys? You will develop whatever you envision. But I'm constantly improving the game engine, and that's something that you need to keep in mind when you work in your game engine. It's okay if you do not know how something works. It is okay for you to implement a particular component half baked or not completely right. um, that is totally okay, as long as you are conscious about that, and as long as you know that you will come back to it and improve it. It's a constant repetition of implementing something, you know um, learning what worked, what didn't work, and coming back and fixing it and making it better and better and better and better. That's why I don't think I will ever finish releasing, well, finalizing my game engine, because I'm a one person shop, as they say. um, and there are components in the game engine that they need a lot of work. um, and technology is constantly moving forward, and you want to always catch up, right? Use the latest libraries, or use the latest algorithms that are out there. And it's something that you need to keep in mind. This is not something that you can say I'm going to release version 1.0 of my game engine by in July 2021. Yes, you can do that, but keep in mind that this is an ongoing hobby. At least that's how I take it. At least that's how I have experienced it. And that's what I want to share with you. And the other thing that I need to think about is, um, not losing focus, right? Because if you start developing a game, and a game engine, right? In my opinion, you will lose focus. It is okay to develop a game, to test your game engine, but I don't think your game should be that complicated that all of a sudden your focus is all on the game and not on the game engine. Because as you develop your game engine, you're going to realize that there's so many enhancements that you can add to your engine, so many improvements that you can make. And if you lose focus by developing a game, then you're losing focus on your game engine, and that is something that I have been struggling, and I have gone through those phases several times. Number one, when I started developing the soccer game for the first time long ago, way back in 2015, 2016. I started doing that thinking that the engine was ready, and it wasn't, right? And I learned a lot. I learned, number one, that I needed to add an artificial intelligence system to the engine. Then number two, I also felt that I had totally ignored the game engine for a while, and there were so many other things that I could have been doing in that time. So now, if you fast forward to recently, I also did a first person shooter game, and that was a great experience. I needed to do that, so that I know what to add to the engine, what features are lacking, bugs that you encounter. But something that I did notice is that as I was developing it, my focus again shifted from the game engine onto the game, right? And I was no longer working on that game engine. I was just working on the game. And developing a game engine is completely different than developing a game. There's two different mindsets, right? There are just two different worlds that somehow that they will combine at one point. But that is something that I have learned, right? You either work on a game or work on a game engine, either or. And the problem is this, right? The problem is that when you are working on your game engine, there will be a point when you want to test your game engine. And the best way to do so as an indie game engine developer is to develop a game. The problem is that sometimes when you're developing the game, you can go into this rabbit hole when you are completely adding more features to the game, because you get excited and you want to do this and that, and then all of a sudden you have lost focus on your game engine. And that is that is something very hard to, in my opinion, to keep track, right? Go back and focus on the game engine. In my opinion, there are thousands of ways of how to develop a game engine, and no one really knows. No one is an expert in this, okay? Because it is such a big, complex design that no one really, you don't have to follow what somebody says as the gospel. You don't have to do that, right? And that makes game engine development so freaking cool, because you can approach game development the way that you feel it should be, right? You are free to experiment. You are free to come up with your own ideas and approach them, right? And more than that, actually, you will realize that most of your time when you're working on your own game engine, what you are trying to implement may start out as a chaotic mess, and it will feel that way, right? Number one is it's gonna feel that way because you are trying to explore, you're trying to learn, right? Number two, you do not know what you don't know, so you have to go out there and figure out how can this work, what's the best way to do all this, and that's what I do a lot of my time. Like 90% of my time, my whole implementation starts out as a chaotic mess, and I start out trying something, right, which I know is not a proper way to do it. I'm aware that's not way. There has to be a better way. But as I keep going into it, and more, I discover better ways of how to explore and how to make all this better. And I bring this up because what I'm doing right now, I am fully well aware that is not the proper way to do something that will scale or that will be maintainable in the future, right? Right now, fix them, right? And that's the whole point of game engine development. And that is why I always suggest people when if you're gonna develop your own game engine, don't take this as an end goal to make money, right? Don't do that, okay? Because a game engine is a very complex architecture. What you need to be focused on, how you should approach game engine development is as a hobby, right? A hobby that you enjoy, a hobby that you want to pursue, a hobby that with the goal that you're going to educate yourself and you're going to learn a lot about computer graphics and programming and engineering development. A hobby that's going to keep you sharp, right? It is a very nice hobby because, number one, in my opinion, you never finish working on your game engine. There's always something that needs to be improved, something that you need to make better. There's always something to do with your game engine. It's not like a game, right? Which you start developing the game, add some features, and then there's you can, once the game is released, it's over, then you can move on because the game has all the mechanics, has all the gameplay, has all of the stories that you wanted. You can add more story to the game or fix some issues, but eventually, in my opinion, you can always call it a day, right? But for game engine, things that you implemented 2-3 years ago and you look at them right now, you will be embarrassed at yourself, like, did I write that? And that's how I feel many times when I go and look at my own code. I'm like, what was I thinking back then to think that would be the right way. But that's the whole point, right? To always continuously be improving. So having said like that, I was saying, if you ever feel burnt out with your game engine development and you want to quit, don't worry, I have been there so many times. So that feeling of quitting is normal. It's gonna happen. You may end up taking like 4, 5, 6 month break. It's alright. This is an overwhelming hobby in the once you get into the middle stages of development. The first stages is fun, but the middle stages is just overwhelming. So if you ever feel like quitting, don't feel bad. It's not like you're, just take a break. Do something else for a while. And if it turns out that you truly miss game engine development, you're gonna come back to it, right? If it turns out that you really have a passion for this, then you will come back to this hobby, and it will be here waiting for you. But if you don't, then so what, right? There's nothing to be ashamed or feel bad. Then this is not for you, and that's totally okay. Something else is for you, and there's not a big deal. But you will feel like quitting, and that's alright. And if you do, just step back, take a sabbatical, take a break, a couple of months, and or you can do what I do sometimes. I do step back a lot, instead of working on it for like 2-3 hours a day, I work for, I don't know, 20 minutes. Or I do something else related to computer graphics, like working on shaders, learning more about shaders. There's so many things that, you can do. Like you can start developing a game, either with your own game engine, if it's ready, right? Or just another engine, who cares? See. Alright guys, so that is it. I hope you found these tips useful. I hope you can make use of them. And again, if you want to hang out with me on Twitch, the link to my channel is in the description below. Feel free to subscribe. I usually go live early in the mornings. That's the best time that I can go, and do live streaming. So thank you guys. Subscribe to my channel, to my YouTube channel, or Twitch, and I see you next time. Thank you.